Hello everyone. Hope you're doing great. I am Raj, the odd man out in the class. I mean, I am project manager by profession and aspiring to be a corporate trainer, my passion. I'm looking forward to have a career change after my graduation this May. So, why I am here? To introduce the ADDIE model to our class. I am very excited to share some of the thoughts about the ADDIE model, as this is the signature model used by most of the corporate organizations across the globe. The learning objective for this class, this session, is to present the ADDIE model steps, and you will be able to construct an effective training based on that. So given the ADDIE model steps in this session, the participant will be able to construct an efficient training, effective training with performance support tools. So what is ADDIE model? Before I start talking about the ADDIE model, I would share a bit of history about ADDIE model. ADDIE model was first developed by the Florida State University Center for Education Technology on mid 1970s for the US Army. Due to its tremendous success, it was later adapted for use by all branches of US Armed Forces. On a late 1990s, ADDIE model transitioned to private services sector. Since then, it has become most widely and frequently used model for developing the training in private organizations. Even today, this model is being used for developing the mandatory compliance trainings. So, what is this ADDIE model? ADDIE is an acronym for analysis, design, development, implementation, and evaluation. This is a systematic process used to improve the training performance. Each phase would get the input from the previous stage, and I would discuss each stage in detail on the coming slides. It's very important to note, ADDIE model could be very time consuming, and also it requires a lot of effort and resources to implement it. So careful planning should be done before implementing this model for developing any sort of training in the organization. So we are talking about the training. So what exactly is training? Is it different from education? If so, what is the difference? Let's talk about it. So education is a lifelong learning experience. So training is just required to do a job at hand. Uh, Education is more likely, understanding of self, culture, and the world. But training, on the other hand, is short-time learning. It's aligned to the business goal, so it could change frequently. So to this year, we have to train on something which is cutting edge. Next year, it could be, dormant, and we have to find some other new technology, and we have to be equipped in order to perform the tasks on that technology. Training is always short term, and education could be unstructured. It could be focused on creativity, like we saw the previous weeks. It could be very creative, but training, on the other hand, should be structured, should follow the steps, and then it's based on the end goals. In training, it's very imperative. Uh, you have to achieve the training outcome, otherwise the training will not happen in the future. But in education, you can almost learn anything you want. It just takes the self-interest. But for training, you cannot enroll in any course you want. There have to be certain protocols has to be followed. Like you have to enroll for the training, and you have to get approval from your manager, and the manager would check for the business need, and then he would approve or reject the request. In education, the educator is the source of knowledge. So the students can learn based on their um, how to say, based on their interest. They could learn more about the subject, but educator is the source of knowledge. In training world, a trainer is just a facilitator. He is there to just fill the gaps. Most of the time, the participants know better than the trainer. When I go for training, my participants are always knowledgeable. They know better than me. So trainer is just a facilitator. And my professor famously says, trainer should never work harder than the learner. Having said that, ADDIE model is predominantly used in the workplace training. Let's look at the ADDIE phases in detail. ADDIE model is very easy. First, you analyze your training needs, then you design your training content, then you develop the training materials, you conduct the training, and then you evaluate if the training has met its end goals or not. That's it. Let's see each phase in detail. Let's start with the analysis phase. Systematic search for a root cause of a problem is called analysis. So identifying what should be happening versus what actually is happening will be the first step in any training. So analysis phase consists of 3 steps. You have need analysis, gap analysis, and the task analysis. The need analysis step is based on the performance analysis quadrant, which I will show you now. So this is simple 2 by 2 matrix where you have motivation, selection, resources and environment, and the training. With the x-axis, you have the attitude points, and in y-axis you have knowledge points. So in this step, the needs analysis or the performance analysis, we try to find the need for the training, or we find the actual performance which is required by interviewing the subject matter expert or the higher management. The second step is gap analysis. So once you find the training need, the actual optimal performance, next step is to find the actual performance. So what is happening now, and then you try to find the gap between the actual and the optimal performance. So gap analysis is basically finding the gap between actual performance and the optimal performance, the required performance, and then how to fill the gap, developing the training materials to fill the gap. So this is very important. So this is gap analysis we do in the organization. So we have actual, optimal, we have performance development and the action plan to improve the performance. The next step is the third step is the task analysis. So we have high level tasks. By talking to a subject matter expert or management, we get the high level tasks. But high level task, we cannot conduct training with the high level tasks. So we need to subdivide the high level tasks into a process called chunking. So it's imperative to have a clear and concise understanding of all the tasks involved in the job before we train it. So we list all the jobs and then further divide them into outcomes. From outcomes, we divide it into tasks, and from the tasks, we divide it into steps and details. So training has to happen at this level, steps and details. So chunking is an important part. We get the high level and then we come to the lowest possible level. Sorry. So this is the task analysis. Job, major outcome, task, and then steps. To sum up, in analysis phase, we are identifying the need for the training. Through need analysis, we identify the optimal performance required, and then we find the actual performance by interviewing the participants, and then we find the gap and try to fill the gap by developing the materials. And then we also do a chunking called um, detailing from the high level tasks to the lower possible tasks, steps and decisions. The second step in ADDIE model, or second phase in the ADDIE model, is design phase. Design phase involves in building the roadmap for the course. So this is where we define the training. So it uses the inputs obtained from the analysis phase for the effective design of the training content. It has 3 steps: defining the training content, defining the goals and learning objectives, and then defining the assessment of the learning. So in defining the training content step, we actually define what content we are going to train. Any training content could be divided into 5 types: uh, facts, concepts, process, procedures, or principles. So for each training content type, we need to follow specific strategy to develop the training material. To learn more about this, there is a wonderful book called Developing Technical Training by Ruth Calvin Clark. uh, you can read that entire book is written for this purpose. And there is always Google. You can Google it and learn more about it. So we define the training content. So what type of content we are going to train. And then the next step is um, defining the training goals and the learning objectives. So goals are the broad based aims of the training. So for example, a goal will be like, by end of training the participant would be able to do so and so effectively. um, but objectives are specific measurable tasks. For example, by end of training participants would be able to complete the expense report with 95% accuracy all the time. So it is imperative to define the training goals and objectives as they act as a roadmap for the course. Um, it's so for each module you should have a learning objective, and for the training as a whole you should have a goal to evaluate it later. And then the last step is to define the assessment of the learning. So how are we planning to assess the participants' performance, trainees' performance? It could be test, it could be interview, it could be observation. So whatever it is, so we have to define it in the design phase. So to sum up, a design phase is the roadmap of the training, and then in design phase we have 3 steps. We will define the training content, define the training goals and learning objectives, define the assessment of the learning. That brings us to the third phase of ADDIE model, that is development phase. This phase focuses on developing the training content and the material creation. This phase also involves doing the pilot testing and revising and revisiting the training content. Okay, let's see the steps in detail. The first step, developing the training content. So when we develop the training content, first we develop the information display and the practice exercises. Once we develop the display, and then we have to identify how we are going to deliver it. It could be a PowerPoint deck, or it could be a video, or it could be an audio. So whatever it is, so we have to now develop the delivery media. And once the information display, practice exercise, and delivery media is done, then we should think of delivering it, how we are going to deliver it. It could be a classroom, it could be online, or it could be blended. All these come under developing the training content. The next step is to do a pilot training. So once the training content is developed, and then we have to do a pilot to ensure that it works fine, because sometimes the video won't play, sometimes audio is not clear, sometimes you don't have a clear display. So it is imperative to do that before the actual training, because you can always fix it. And then the next step, the last step, is revising and revisiting the training content. So it's important to have a peer review. For example, for this presentation I send the presentation deck and the script to Dr. Smith to check, to get her comments and feedback. And then you revisit the training content. Sometimes you have a typo here and there, so it's important to fix all those things. To sum up, in the development phase, we are developing the training materials. We think of the strategy, how we are going to deliver it. That's an online classroom, or which tool we are going to use. It could be a PowerPoint, it could be video, audio, and then what kind of information display and practice exercises we are planning to use. And then we do a pilot training to run the dry run, to check if everything is working as expected, and then we revisit and revise the training content as appropriate. Okay, so the next step in ADDIE model is implementation phase. This is where we conduct the training, but it's more than that. That could be training enrollment. You, as a trainer, you may have to work with third-party guys on enrolling the participants, checking the seating arrangements if it's a classroom training, and then ensuring that all the required materials are in place. And sometimes we have to train the trainer, because it's impossible to have everyone trained on a particular session. So most of the time in headquarters they call some top people, trainers, then they train the trainers, and then the trainers go back to their respective country or their location and then train the associates later. And sometimes we have to customize the training materials. So due to unforeseen circumstances, a 3-day training could be reduced to a 1 day or a day and a half. So as a trainer, we should be flexible to modify that. And then last, which is very important, we have to document and report the results of the training. Some management wants to know how many people attended the training and how was the training. So it is imperative to share the documentation to the management for future planning. To sum up, in implementation phase, we conduct the actual training. Also, we work with training enrollment. We verify the seating arrangements and all the materials required, sending the pre-class memos, and then we document and send the results to the management. That brings us to the last phase of the ADDIE model, the evaluation phase. Why do we evaluate? So, to determine the worth of the training, so whether the training is worth and significant, they have set of criteria to validate that. There are two types of evaluation. One is formative, other one is summative. Formative evaluation happens at each stage after analysis, design, development, implementation. Summative evaluation happens based on the Kirkpatrick's evaluation model. So some companies are in level 1, some are in level 4. The level 1 companies, they just evaluate what is the trainee reaction, uh, like happy sheets, feedback, etc. In level 2 learning, level 2 is learning. There we evaluate the learning. This happens, this is very common. So it happens when you have a pre-test before the training, and then after the training you have a post-test, and the difference of the scores give the learning of the training. And then third level is called transfer or behavior, where the behavior of the participant is observed after the training. So how he's performing, whether he or she is able to implement the knowledge from the training back to the workplace. And then the fourth level is called result oriented, where there are certain models or process to evaluate this performance appraisal systems, performance measurement tools. CMM level 5 and ISO level companies have those tools, so they capture these by sending a person through the training, and then how he performs in the job throughout the year. So I thought this is too much of information to digest. So I thought like I'll give one practical example which would help remember the ADDIE model steps. So I tried to develop this ADDIE model presentation using ADDIE model. I didn't do it 100%, but I definitely tried wherever I can use it. Just want to share that. In analysis phase, I understood the target audience by reading their profiles, and I spoke to Dr. Smith to get the optimal performance, so what is expected from the presentation. And then I did the task analysis. Each phase I further divided into detail level tasks and steps and decisions by providing examples. In the design phase, I did a web search. I took notes from developing the technical training by Ruth Calvin Clark. I used my work experience and also previous semester notes, and for writing a script for the session. And in the development phase, I created the PowerPoint slides, recorded this script using Screencast-O-Matic tool, and I made edits here and there. In the implementation phase, I uploaded the recording, I got a workable URL, and I shared it and how to post it in the wiki space. In the evaluation phase, I had formative evaluation with Dr. Smith by validating my training deck, presentation deck, and also the script. And summative evaluation would be an individual assessment of the ADDIE model. I hope this helps. Before we close, we have last one topic to cover, the underlying learning models or learning theories. So I'm not going to explain these theories in detail because I'm sure everybody knows this better than me as an educator. So learning theories play an important role in designing the instruction materials. So below are some of the learning theories are at play in ADDIE approach for designing the instruction. So behaviorism, I'm going to give a single liner. This assumes now behavior is a consequence of some stimuli. It could be punishment or a reward. And constructivism is most like a hands-on approach. People learn by experimenting and doing. Cognitivism is based on the thinking, so brain plays the important role here, and learning happens through information processing. Social learning says, learning happens in the social context. It could happen by observation or through instruction. And adult learning says, adults have different training needs. They are autonomous. Don't treat them as a children, and they learn by doing and collaboration. So all these learning models are at play in ADDIE approach. So let's review the concepts one final time. So ADDIE model is a descriptive guideline for building an effective training using analysis, design, development, implementation, and evaluation phases. In analysis phase, we do a systematic search for the need for training. We identify the gaps and we fill the gaps by listing out the detailed task from the high level task to the low level task called chunking. In the design phase, we provide the roadmap for the training. We use the input from the analysis phase and we try to do an effective design of the training content. In the development phase, we develop the training materials and we think of delivery media, how we are going to deliver the training, and then we do a pilot and we revise and revisit the contents. In the implementation phase, we conduct the training, we document and send the results to the management. And in the evaluation phase, we evaluate the significance or worth of the training using a set standards or criteria, and which can be used for future planning of the course. Here are some references to learn more about ADDIE model. And thank you so much for patiently listening to me. I took a lot of time, sorry for that. And here's my business card. You can always send me a mail if there are any questions, and I would be happy to answer. And have a wonderful day. Thanks.